Hi, I'm Steve Myers, candidate for mayor of Baton Rouge. This is a Myers Message Part 2 on underage drinking. In Part 1, we discussed the problem and a general framework and the hypocrisy of the law that allows people under 21 in bars, despite the law prohibiting them from drinking or possessing, and the total lack of regulation and control that appears in many cases in some of the college bars around LSU and Southern. None of the other candidates have even mentioned this issue, much less proposed a plan. And although it may not be, the top issue, it is an issue that not only is important, but has a lot of money and revenue available to the parish that's not being tapped. Enforcement as it exists is a huge money loser, so we're presenting a plan in this part of the message to make alcohol beverage control even more effective and more self-supporting. Hopefully my first Metro Council will work with me closely, take this matter seriously to implement a more effective plan. Number one, just like the gambling boats had a boarding fee, there should be a $2 weekday and $5 weekend gate fee at all bars that admit 18 to 21-year-old patrons. Point number two, we need to coordinate and implement a mandatory system of distinguishing 18-year-old admittees from 21-year-old admittees. Some currently voluntarily use a wristband system where they give a colored wristband or some other designation to those over 21 and a different one to those 18 to 21, so bartenders can more easily determine who is allowed or not allowed to buy a drink in a crowded bar. But this is not a mandatory program, and it's different at each bar. There's also a $250 first offense fine for selling to underage drinking. Now, this wristband system seems to work at many of the bars, but it's not mandatory, so we need a consistent protocol. Number three, a protocol needs to be enacted to force bars who admit under 21 to report admissions with a split of the number of patrons under 21 and those over 21. This would be an easy calculation when a gate fee with a city-mandated cover charge is implemented. The bar would simply report the number of people it admitted that particular day, how many were over 21 and how many were under 21. Number four, bars should be required to report sales and admissions just as the gambling outlets are required to report receipts and winnings. And this is not just on end-of-the-month sales tax forms where we have gross figures, but I'm talking about on a day-by-day basis, perhaps by internet in this age of technology, with sales and admission figures appearing side by side along with the number of persons over 21 and under 21, between 18 and 21 that were admitted. If you're under 18, of course, you're not supposed to be admitted at all. From these figures, an algorithm can roughly determine whether an excessive amount of alcohol is being served. For example, admission and gate figures will show the number of customers over 21 and under 21, and the number of hours the facility was open that day, the average drink price, and the admissions. From all of this information, it can be determined and clear whether in aggregate too much alcohol is being served. For example, if the algorithm shows each person over 21 would have been served an average of 15 drinks in a 4-hour period or a 5-hour period that the bar was open, then two things would be clear. A, it would be clear that the over 21 crowd would be exceeding all obvious drink charts for healthy alcohol absorption, and B, more likely that those under 21 are not drinking just Coca-Cola. It would reveal a big problem, which is the sales to the 21-year-old by the bar it may be legal, but that they then turn and hand the drink to an 18-year-old who is not legal. It's impossible to put a number of people in the field to stop this kind of problem, but by monitoring the admissions and the amount of alcohol served with the average drink, we'd be able to figure out where problems may exist. Some estimates have that as many as 70 or 80% of some of these bars are underage drinkers. Now, is this too much government? Absolutely, absolutely. My campaign is partly about protecting civil liberties, but we're ignoring a serious enforcement of a serious problem. If the city can claim under its police power and for the public safety to infringe on an individual's right to live together, their right of association under the First Amendment, it can certainly use those powers to set limits on the aggregate amount of alcohol served, as well as require reporting on essentially a controlled substance. Personally, I'm not even for the drinking age as it now exists. I think if you are old enough to go to war, sign a contract, get married, the age of majority should be old enough to buy a beer. I'm also not for hypocrisy as it currently exists by the government, especially the parish attorney, where they prosecute unrelated people for living together when there is no harm to anyone, while a serious problem like this alcohol problem goes unchecked. We need to look at refining the current laws and reallocating our resources to give ABC enforcement people better tools to enforce a much more significant problem than living together, and that is the problem of underage drinking. We can make this happen if we make it Myers.